What if I told you a narrow strip of water just 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point has the power to crash global markets, spike inflation, and even trigger wars? Sounds exaggerated, right? But here's the mystery. Every single day, trillions of dollars indirectly depend on this one route staying open, and yet, it's one of the most vulnerable choke points on Earth. So why does the world's most advanced diversified global economy rely so heavily on a single, fragile passage? And more importantly, what happens if it closes? To understand this, we need to go back not just years, but decades into how the modern global economy was built. After World War II, the world shifted toward interconnected trade. Oil became the lifeblood of industrial growth. Nations didn't just produce energy, they depended on it from elsewhere. And that's where the Middle East entered the story. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE began producing massive amounts of oil. But there was a problem. How do you transport that oil to the rest of the world? Pipelines helped, but they weren't enough. Instead, the world turned to shipping routes, and one route, above all others, became critical: the Strait of Hormuz. At first glance, it looks like just another waterway, but beneath the surface, it holds a secret, dangerous dependency that most people don't even realize exists. The Strait of Hormuz connects the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea, and beyond that, the entire global ocean network. By the 1970s, oil demand had exploded, Western economies were booming, and energy consumption was skyrocketing. Tankers began passing through Hormuz in increasing numbers. At the same time, something else happened. Oil-producing nations gained power. The 1973 oil crisis was a turning point. When oil supply was restricted, global economies suffered almost instantly. That was the first major signal. A single region, and more importantly, a single route, could disrupt the entire world. From that moment on, Hormuz wasn't just a shipping lane. It became a geopolitical pressure point. Fast forward to today, roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow strait. That's not just a statistic. That's a vulnerability. Think about it. Every fifth barrel of oil consumed globally must pass through this one choke point. Countries like China, India, Japan, and much of Europe depend heavily on this flow. Even the United States, despite increasing domestic production, still feels the ripple effects. Because oil isn't just a commodity, it controls transportation, manufacturing, electricity, and even food prices. When oil prices rise, everything becomes more expensive. And when supply is threatened, markets panic. Over the years, tensions in the region have turned Hormuz into a ticking time bomb. Military buildups, naval patrols, threats of blockades. Each event sends shockwaves through financial markets. But here's the twist. The system didn't adapt. Instead of reducing dependency, the world doubled down. There have been multiple moments when the Strait of Hormuz came dangerously close to disruption. During the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, both sides targeted oil tankers in what became known as the tanker war. Insurance costs skyrocketed, shipping slowed down, oil prices surged. Then more recently, tensions between Iran and Western powers led to direct threats to close the strait. Each time the same pattern repeated. Threat emerges, markets react instantly, oil prices spike, global economies feel pressure, and yet, the route never fully closed. Why? Because closing Hormuz would hurt everyone, including those threatening it. It's a paradox. The world depends on Hormuz, but no one can afford to shut it down. That fragile balance is what keeps the system running, but it's also what makes it so dangerous. Let's imagine, just for a moment, what if the Strait of Hormuz was blocked even temporarily? Within days, oil prices could skyrocket beyond $150 per barrel, stock markets could crash globally, inflation would surge, supply chains would break down, countries heavily dependent on imported energy would be hit the hardest. Factories would slow down, air travel would become expensive, food prices would rise due to increased transportation costs. This isn't speculation, it's a chain reaction. Because the global economy is built on efficiency, not resilience. It assumes that critical routes like Hormuz will always remain open, but assumptions are where systems fail. Over the years, countries have tried to reduce dependency on Hormuz. Pipelines were built to bypass the strait. Strategic oil reserves were created. Alternative energy sources were explored. But none of these solutions fully solved the problem. Why? Because demand kept growing. Even as renewable energy expanded, oil consumption remained high. Pipelines can't replace the massive volume transported by sea. And reserve, they only buy time, not stability. In reality, the system didn't fix the vulnerability. It just managed it. And management is not the same as security. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The story of Hormuz isn't unique. It's part of a larger pattern in the global economy. Critical dependency is concentrated in fragile points. Think about semiconductor supply chains concentrated in a few regions, shipping bottlenecks like the Suez Canal, energy pipelines running through politically unstable areas. Each of these systems operates efficiently until something goes wrong, and when it does, the impact is global. The Strait of Hormuz is simply the most extreme example. It shows us what happens when the world becomes too dependent on a single point of failure. So what can we learn from all of this? Takeaway number 1. The global economy isn't as stable as it looks. It's built on critical choke points, and Hormuz is the most important of them all. Takeaway number 2. Efficiency often comes at the cost of resilience. The faster and cheaper a system becomes, the more fragile it can be. Takeaway number 3. Geopolitics and economics are deeply connected. A conflict in one region can affect prices, jobs, and livelihoods across the world. And here's the warning. As global tensions rise and energy demand continues, the risk around the Strait of Hormuz isn't decreasing, it's increasing. The real question is not if this route will face disruption again, but when, and when it does, will the world be ready? Or will we repeat the same sickle shock, panic, and temporary fixes? If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to subscribe to by Tariq, where we uncover the hidden systems shaping our world. And tell me in the comments, do you think the world can ever reduce its dependency on routes like Hormuz? Or is this riskier to stay? Because sometimes the most dangerous threats aren't the ones we see. They're the ones we depend on every single day.